is it that lust never leaves you satisfied? You get what you wanted. You feel the release. But only moments later, the hunger returns. Louder, heavier, emptier than before. It's like drinking salt water when you're thirsty. The more you consume, the more it consumes you. Sigmund Freud, the father of psychoanalysis, saw this with brutal clarity. He believed that lust wasn't the path to freedom or fulfillment. It was the very opposite, a trap that leaves men drained, weakened, and enslaved. And here's the shocking part. Freud argued that lust is not an occasional impulse. It's the core engine of human behavior. Every decision, every desire, every act of creation, he traced it all back to one thing: libido, the sexual drive. But in lust, this drive doesn't elevate you. It empties you. Freud built his entire psychology on a simple but uncomfortable truth. Beneath the surface of your polished life, your career, your ambitions, your relationships, lies a raw, primal force that is always hungry. He called it the libido. Most people like to pretend they're driven by logic, morality, or higher ideals. Freud didn't buy it. He believed that beneath it all, sex is the root cause. The desire to pursue, to conquer, to achieve, even to create art. All of it, he said, was fueled by the sexual drive. But here's where lust becomes brutal. The libido is like fire. Controlled, it can heat, illuminate, and give life. Uncontrolled, it consumes everything in its path. Lust is the uncontrolled form of that drive. It promises a peak, a high, a release, a satisfaction. And for a fleeting second, it delivers. But then it collapses, leaving you emptied, restless, craving again. This is why men who live for lust feel perpetually dissatisfied. The more they chase it, the weaker they become. Because lust is not designed to fulfill you. It's designed to keep you chasing. Freud described this cycle as the pleasure principle, the unconscious drive to seek pleasure and avoid pain. But here's the paradox. Lust delivers pain disguised as pleasure. You chase satisfaction, but the more you indulge, the less satisfied you become. Think of modern examples. The man addicted to pornography, consuming more extreme content to feel less and less. The serial dater, always excited at the start, always empty after the high fades. The man who confuses lust for intimacy, only to feel lonelier with every conquest. These aren't accidents. They are the design of lust itself. Because lust is not fulfillment. It is hunger. A hunger that grows stronger the more you feed it. And Freud's brutal truth is this: unless you master that hunger, it will master you. You think you're chasing pleasure, but in reality, lust is chasing you. And every time you give in, you're left emptier than before. Why does lust feel like it owns you? Why is it that no matter how much willpower you think you have, the pull of desire rips through your body like a wild animal breaking its chains? Freud had a brutal answer. Because lust doesn't come from your civilized self. It comes from the ID, the raw, animal core of your mind. And when the id takes over, reason doesn't matter. Morality doesn't matter. Even love doesn't matter. The id wants one thing, and it will devour everything to get it. Freud divided the human mind into three forces. 1. The id, which is your primal, unconscious drives. Hunger, fear, aggression, sex. the animal inside you. 2. The ego, which is your conscious self, trying to balance reality and impulse. 3. The superego, which is your moral compass, shaped by culture, religion, and family. In this system, the id is the oldest, deepest, and most relentless part of you. It doesn't think, it doesn't plan, it doesn't care. It only wants. And at the heart of the id's demands is lust. Freud argued that lust is the purest expression of the id. It's raw, primitive, and blind to consequence. When lust strikes, the superego whispers, "This is wrong." The ego whispers, "Wait, be careful." But the id roars louder than them both. That's why lust can feel like possession. A man may be intelligent, disciplined, moral, yet under lust, he finds himself lying, scheming, risking everything just to satisfy the hunger. Freud saw this as the true danger. The id doesn't care about your future. It doesn't care about your relationships. It doesn't even care about your survival. Its only law is pleasure, immediate, total, and now. This is why so many men sabotage their lives for lust. Affairs that destroy marriages, addictions that hollow out ambition, impulses that wreck reputations in a single night. The id doesn't think ahead. It pulls you downward, dragging you into choices that enslave you. And the more you give in, the stronger it becomes. Because every indulgence tells the id, you are in charge. Modern life has only magnified this problem. Freud could never have imagined the endless stream of sexual imagery, instant access, and digital temptations men face today. For the id, this is paradise, a buffet with no limits. But for the man, it's hell disguised as freedom. Here's Freud's brutal truth. When you let lust rule, you are no longer a man. You are an animal dressed in human clothes. The id has taken the throne, and the longer you serve it, the more it empties you of discipline, of strength, of the very essence that makes you human. Because lust is not just desire, it is the id unchained. You felt it, the build-up of desire, the craving, the tension that feels unbearable until the moment of release. And for a brief second, you think you've won. You think you've satisfied the hunger. But then it comes back, stronger, louder, emptier. Why? Freud's answer was ruthless, because pleasure doesn't satisfy. It deceives. It tricks you into thinking you're free when you're actually sinking deeper into the trap. Freud called this the pleasure principle, the instinctive drive in all humans to seek immediate gratification. The id wants release. The ego scrambles to provide it, and you give in because the tension feels unbearable. But here's the twist. Freud argued that pleasure is an illusion because the very second you satisfy it, the cycle resets. Think of it like fire. You feed it fuel, and for a moment the flames calm. But then the blaze grows hotter, demanding more. Lust works the same way. The release feels like relief, but it never delivers peace. Instead, it resets the hunger to zero and sharpens the craving again. This is why the man trapped in lust never finds fulfillment. He thinks the next partner will finally make him feel complete. He thinks the next release will finally quiet the craving. He thinks indulging just this once will satisfy the urge. But the more he feeds the hunger, the more the hunger grows. Freud saw this cycle play out in his patients, men and women,
who lived in endless pursuit of desire, yet confessed again and again to feeling emptier after each indulgence.
This is what makes lust so brutal. It sells you the illusion of freedom while making you a slave. Modern culture is proof of Freud's prophecy. Hookup culture promises excitement, yet leaves people lonelier than ever. Pornography promises unlimited satisfaction, yet creates men who feel nothing at all. Even relationships, when built on lust alone, collapse under the weight of unmet longing. The release never lasts. Because lust doesn't want to be satisfied. Lust wants to be fed, endlessly, without limit. And Freud's darker point was this: the more you chase pleasure, the further you drift from reality. He called this the reality principle, the counterforce that demands we adapt to the real world instead of living for fantasy. When a man ignores reality and surrenders only to pleasure, he doesn't just weaken himself, he loses himself. The illusion of release empties him of discipline, focus, even meaning. Because what felt like victory was never victory at all. It was just another link in the chain. Every man thinks he's in control. It's just a release. It's just a habit. It doesn't affect me. But Freud's brutal truth was this: lust doesn't just take your pleasure, it takes your strength. And the more you feed it, the more it feeds on you. Freud wrestled with a dangerous paradox. He warned against repression, the attempt to bury desire, which often explodes in destructive ways. But he also warned against indulgence, because surrendering to lust drains a man of his energy, his focus, his very will to live. This was Freud's most unsettling claim. Lust doesn't just play with your body, it rewires your psyche. Each indulgence empties you a little more. And when the indulgence becomes addiction, the emptiness becomes total. Think of the men you've seen it hollow out. The man chained to pornography, spending hours every night, unable to perform in real life because his brain is addicted to fantasy. The man who destroys his marriage chasing affairs, only to end up alone, bitter, and weaker than before. The man who spends his best years in cycles of hookups, thinking he's winning, while his ambition, discipline, and drive slowly rot away. This isn't coincidence. Freud argued that unchecked lust steals energy that could have been directed toward creation, mastery, and achievement. He called the solution sublimation, the transformation of sexual energy into art, science, leadership, or creativity. But when a man refuses sublimation and chooses indulgence instead, the very force that could elevate him ends up consuming him. This is why men trapped in lust cycles feel perpetually tired, unmotivated, and unfocused. They are drained because they have been feeding the hunger instead of mastering it. Modern science only proves Freud right. Neurological studies show how compulsive indulgence in lust desensitizes the brain's reward system, leaving men numb, depressed, and unable to experience real fulfillment. Their dopamine pathways burn out, leaving them addicted to novelty, but incapable of satisfaction. The cost of addiction is not just emptiness. It is the death of masculine vitality. Because lust doesn't just steal time, it steals power. The power to focus, the power to create, the power to endure suffering in pursuit of something greater. And once that power is gone, what's left is not a man in control, but a man enslaved. Freud's brutal warning echoes across generations. Lust will not stop at your pleasure. It will take your strength, your purpose, your very self. Every time you think you've taken from it, it's been taking from you. What if the very force that empties you could also build you?
Freud's most overlooked and most powerful idea was this: lust doesn't have to enslave you. It can be redirected, transformed, forged into strength. This process has a name. Freud called it sublimation. And for the men who master it, lust stops being a curse. It becomes fuel. Freud believed that the libido, the sexual drive, is the most powerful energy inside the human psyche. Left unchecked, it drags a man downward, chaining him to cycles of addiction and emptiness. But if channeled, that same energy can be elevated into higher pursuits: art, science, invention, mastery, leadership. That's sublimation, the transformation of raw sexual energy into something creative, productive, and transcendent. History is filled with men who unknowingly practiced it. Artists who poured their passion into painting, music, or poetry instead of indulgence. Leaders who harnessed discipline over their desires, redirecting energy into vision and conquest. Thinkers, inventors, and creators whose work carried the intensity of redirected libido rather than the emptiness of indulgence. Freud argued that sublimation is what separates the weak from the strong, the ordinary from the extraordinary. Because most men are emptied by lust, only a few transform it into fuel. Think of the difference. The man enslaved to lust spends his nights drained, his mornings dulled, his willpower broken. The man who sublimates channels the same energy into training, building, creating, pushing. His nights fuel his mornings, and his hunger becomes power. This is why Freud's idea of sublimation was revolutionary. He wasn't saying repress lust. Repression only makes it explode in worse ways. He wasn't saying indulge lust. Indulgence makes you weak. He was saying transcend it. And here's the brutal but liberating truth. The drive itself never goes away. Lust will always knock on the door, but mastery comes from deciding what to do with it. Do you let it consume you, or do you bend it into strength? Freud's escape route wasn't easy. It required discipline, self-awareness, and vision. But for the man who walks it, lust no longer empties him. It empowers him. Because sublimation turns hunger into fuel. And that's the moment a man stops being a slave to his desire and starts being a master of it. What separates the weak man from the strong man?
It isn't talent. It isn't luck. It isn't even intelligence. It's discipline. The ability to master his drives instead of being mastered by them. Freud showed us the brutal truth. Lust is a hunger that never ends, but he also showed us the way out: sublimation.
And in the modern world, this means one thing: building a new discipline. The man who lives for lust is not free. He is chained by his impulses, by his cravings, by his need for constant release. But the man who disciplines himself, who learns to channel lust instead of indulging it, discovers a power most men will never touch. This discipline begins with awareness. You must see lust for what it is: not love, not intimacy, not freedom, but hunger. And once you see it clearly, you stop lying to yourself. From awareness comes resistance, the ability to say no, to delay gratification, to endure the storm of craving without giving in. Every time you resist, you weaken lust's grip. Every time you choose mastery, you remind yourself that you are not an animal. But resistance is only half the battle.
Mastery means redirection. This is how to practice Freud's sublimation in practice. Channel lust into training your body, transforming energy into strength. Channel lust into building a business, a craft, a mission that outlasts the fleeting thrill of release.
Channel lust into creativity, writing, art, invention, expression.
Channel lust into vision, becoming the man who leaves a mark, not the man who leaves a mess.
This isn't repression. This is transformation.
It's taking the same fire that destroys weak men and forging it into the heat that forges steel. And here's the truth most men don't want to hear. This discipline is not a one-time choice. It's a daily battle. Lust never disappears. The id never sleeps. But the disciplined man grows stronger with every victory. Freud's brutal warning about lust was meant as a mirror, but his idea of sublimation was meant as a weapon. And the men who wield it step into a strength few ever know, because they no longer waste themselves on emptiness. They no longer live drained, distracted, and weak. They live focused, strong, grounded. They live as men who own their drive instead of being owned by it. That's the new discipline, and it's the path to mastery. Subscribe and share this video. It's time for masculine awakening.